Hey guys, tonight we delve into a story that, while perhaps not a grand historical epic of empires rising and falling, is profoundly personal, and in its own way, just as epic. Imagine, if you will, a table laden with all your favorite dishes. The aroma of a perfectly roasted chicken wafts through the air, mingling with the sweet promise of a freshly baked apple pie. You see the vibrant colors of a summer salad, hear the gentle clinking of cutlery, and feel the warmth of good company. For many, this scene conjures feelings of comfort, joy, and satisfaction. Food, in its purest form, is sustenance, yes, but it is also celebration, connection, and a source of immense pleasure. But what if, one day, that picture began to blur? What if the vibrant colors dulled, the enticing aromas faded, and the sounds of shared meals became an echo of something you no longer fully experienced? That warmth, that comfort, that unadulterated joy, what if it simply wasn't there anymore? Tonight, we're going to explore a journey many of you, thankfully, may never fully comprehend, but one that, for those who walk it, can be deeply isolating and confusing. We're going to talk about the quiet, insidious process of falling out of love with something as fundamental and all-encompassing as food. And let me be honest, this isn't a fairy tale with a guaranteed happy ending. It's a raw, often difficult exploration of a very human experience. You probably won't survive this without at least questioning your own relationship with sustenance, with pleasure, and with yourself. It's a journey into the subtle shifts of the psyche, the physiological responses that can turn a friend into a foe, and the societal pressures that can amplify an already challenging internal landscape. You might think, how can someone stop loving food? It's essential for life. And you'd be right, in the most basic sense. But love, in all its forms, is a complex emotion, intricately woven with memory, culture, emotion, and personal experience. When that thread begins to fray, the entire tapestry of one's life can begin to unravel in unexpected ways. This isn't about dieting or fleeting preferences, or even a particular dislike for a single ingredient. This is about the very essence of enjoyment, the visceral satisfaction, the deep-seated comfort that food once provided, slowly, painstakingly, eroding away. It's about looking at a plate of what used to be your most cherished meal and feeling nothing, or worse, feeling a distinct sense of dread, a burgeoning anxiety that twists your stomach long before the first bite. Tonight, we peel back the layers of this profound transformation, starting with the quiet whispers that signal the beginning of the end. These aren't loud alarms, mind you. They are subtle, almost imperceptible shifts, easy to dismiss as a bad day, a temporary mood, or just being off. But these whispers, if left unheard, can grow into a chorus that eventually drowns out all the joy. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see how far and wide our little community stretches. The initial feeling often presents itself as a loss of enthusiasm. You're presented with a meal, perhaps one you previously adored, and instead of the customary spark of anticipation, there's a dullness. It's not an active dislike, not yet, but a strange neutrality. Your mind registers the food, your eyes see it, but the customary internal dialogue of, "Oh, delicious," or "I can't wait to try that," is conspicuously absent. It's as if a vital connection between your senses and your pleasure centers has begun to fray. You might push a piece of food around your plate, taking longer than usual to begin eating, or finding yourself easily distracted. The conversation at the table might seem more engaging than the meal itself, whereas before, the food would have held your primary focus, at least initially. This quiet disengagement is the first whisper. Then come the subtle shifts in sensation. Foods that once tasted vibrant and nuanced now seem bland, their distinct flavors muted. A once crisp apple might feel mealy. A rich chocolate cake might just taste sweet without depth. It's not that your taste buds are necessarily failing, but rather that your brain's interpretation of those signals has altered. The magic, the complexity, the sheer experience of flavor begins to diminish. You might find yourself reaching for excessive seasoning, adding more salt, more spice, more sauce, in a desperate attempt to coax out the ghost of flavor that once was. This futile pursuit only serves to highlight the growing disconnect, making the experience even more frustrating. You might even begin to wonder if the chef is having an off day, or if the ingredients themselves are subpar, anything to avoid the unsettling truth that the change is internal. This second whisper speaks of a fading sensory landscape, a world of muted tastes and textures. Finally, there's the quiet erosion of hunger cues. Before, your stomach would rumble, a clear signal that it was time to eat, prompting a delightful anticipation of the meal to come. Now, hunger might present as a vague discomfort, a slight emptiness, rather than a strong, undeniable craving. You might find yourself eating simply because the clock dictates it, or because others are eating, rather than being driven by a genuine, primal need. The satisfaction derived from satiating, that hunger also diminishes. Instead of feeling pleasantly full and content, you might feel a lingering emptiness, or conversely, an uncomfortable heaviness, even from a small portion. The simple act of nourishing your body transforms from an intuitive dance into a deliberate, often joyless task. This final whisper is perhaps the most concerning, as it hints at a deeper deregulation of your body's most basic signals, signaling a more profound internal shift. These initial whispers, easily dismissed, are the subtle beginnings of a much longer, more arduous journey. As those initial whispers grow, the once vibrant joy you associated with food begins its slow, agonizing fade. It's not a sudden, dramatic exit, but rather a gradual dimming, like a stage light slowly being turned down until the spotlight that once illuminated your plate is barely aglow. You start to notice it not just in the absence of anticipation, but in the active presence of something else, a growing indifference, a detachment that settles over every meal. Where food once sparked excitement, perhaps a lively discussion about a new restaurant or a cherished family recipe, it now elicits little more than a shrug. The thought of eating becomes less about pleasure and more about necessity, a chore to be completed rather than an experience to be savored. This shift marks a significant turning point, moving beyond mere muted senses to a fundamental alteration in your emotional connection. You might find yourself planning meals with a purely utilitarian mindset. Before, choosing what to eat might have involved delightful contemplation, considering flavors, textures, and the sheer joy of creation. Now, it's about efficiency, about what's quickest, easiest, or most convenient. The joy of cooking, for many a meditative and creative outlet, transforms into another item on a never-ending to-do list. The vibrant market stalls, once a source of inspiration, now seem like an overwhelming array of options that hold no particular appeal. The act of preparing a meal, once a labor of love, becomes a mechanical process, devoid of the usual sensory engagement. You're simply going through the motions, and the final product, no matter how carefully prepared, often tastes no better or worse than anything else. Consider the ritual of dining out. Previously, the prospect of trying a new restaurant, revisiting a favorite bistro, or sharing a celebratory meal with friends would have been a highlight. Now, it might feel like a performance. You observe others eagerly poring over menus, discussing appetizers and mains with gusto, and you mimic their enthusiasm. But inside, there's a hollowness. You order something, often defaulting to a safe or familiar dish, not because you crave it, but because it requires the least mental effort. The vibrant atmosphere, the clinking glasses, the buzz of conversation, all these elements, once enhancing the dining experience, now serve only to highlight your internal disconnect. You might find yourself more focused on the conversation or on your surroundings, anywhere but on the food in front of you. The social aspect remains, but the culinary core of the experience has become an empty shell. This fading joy extends beyond the act of consumption to the very concept of food itself. Memories of past culinary delights, once capable of bringing a smile to your face, now feel distant, almost as if they belong to someone else. You remember knowing that you loved Grandma's pie, but the visceral feeling of that love is absent. It's like recalling a fact from a textbook rather than reliving a cherished personal experience. This emotional amnesia around food is particularly unsettling, as it severs a deep connection to your personal history and cultural identity, both often heavily intertwined with food. The stories, the traditions, the warmth of shared meals that shaped your past now feel like theoretical constructs rather than lived realities. The emotional void left by this fading joy can be profound. Food, for many, is a source of comfort, a coping mechanism, a way to self-soothe after a long day or during times of stress. When this source of comfort vanishes, you're left searching for alternatives, often unconsciously. This might manifest as increased engagement in other activities, or a sense of restlessness, an underlying unease that something fundamental is missing. The simple act of reaching for a familiar snack for solace is replaced by a moment of hesitation, a question mark hanging over the once automatic gesture. Why bother? Becomes a recurring thought, not just about the food itself, but about the effort required to engage with it, both physically and emotionally. You might also start to notice a disparity between your intellectual understanding of food's importance and your emotional response to it. You know you need to eat for energy, for health, for survival. Your brain rationally understands this. But the emotional drive, the intrinsic pleasure that makes eating a desirable act, is simply not there. This cognitive dissonance can be incredibly frustrating. It's like knowing you should be happy about something, but feeling utterly flat instead. This internal conflict between logic and emotion further complicates your relationship with food, turning it into a battle of wills rather than a harmonious necessity. The once effortless connection between hunger, desire, and satisfaction has been severed, replaced by a conscious, often exhausting, decision-making process for every single bite. The joy, once an intrinsic part of the experience, has not just faded. It has been actively replaced by a sense of obligation and a growing emotional distance. With the joy of eating steadily diminishing, the very rituals surrounding food, once sources of comfort and structure, begin to crumble. These rituals aren't just about the act of eating itself. They encompass everything from the morning coffee routine to the elaborate preparation for holiday feasts. They are the anchors in our day, the punctuation marks in our lives, often infused with meaning, memory, and connection. But when your emotional landscape around food shifts, these anchors lose their grip, and the structure they once provided begins to feel like a meaningless charade. The comforting rhythm of meals, once a cherished part of your daily existence, transforms into an empty, almost burdensome repetition. Consider the morning ritual. For many, the first meal of the day is a sacred moment. A quiet coffee, a nutritious breakfast, a chance to mentally prepare for the hours ahead. Perhaps you had a specific cup, a favorite spot at the table, a particular way of preparing your eggs. These small, consistent acts built a sense of security and familiarity. Now, however, the allure of that morning routine has vanished. The coffee tastes like a bitter necessity. The breakfast feels like force feeding. You might skip it altogether, not out of any conscious choice to diet, but simply because the motivation, the pull of the ritual, is gone. The quiet contemplation is replaced by a hurried, almost aggressive consumption, or an outright avoidance. The comfort of the familiar has been replaced by an unsettling sense of obligation, stripping the ritual of its inherent value. Lunch, too, undergoes a similar transformation. What might have been a social occasion, a chance to connect with colleagues or friends, becomes a solitary, often rushed, affair. The carefully packed lunch, once a source of pride, now seems like a burden. The thought of engaging in the communal act of dining with others, with its implicit expectations of enjoyment and conversation about food, feels daunting. You might find excuses to eat alone, or simply graze on something minimal and uninspiring at your desk, avoiding the very interactions that once made lunch a pleasant interlude. The sense of shared experience, the casual banter over plates of food, fades into the background, leaving you feeling increasingly isolated, even in a crowded room. The ritual of breaking bread with others, a fundamental human connection, begins to feel alien. Then there are the evening meals, often the most significant ritual of the day, particularly for families. The expectation of gathering around a table, sharing stories, and bonding over a home-cooked meal is deeply ingrained in many cultures. But when your relationship with food falters, this central ritual becomes a source of immense pressure and anxiety. The thought of preparing a meal for others, when you derive no pleasure from it yourself, becomes an exhausting ordeal. The effort feels disproportionate to the reward, which for you is now non-existent. Sitting at the table, you might find yourself picking at your food, struggling to make conversation, acutely aware of your own disengagement. The shared laughter, the clinking of plates, the general warmth of the family meal, instead of enveloping you, now highlight your growing distance from this fundamental human experience. Special occasions, once marked by elaborate culinary rituals, become particularly challenging. Holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas, traditionally centered around grand feasts, lose their luster. The joy of planning the menu, preparing specific dishes, and sharing them with loved ones is replaced by a sense of dread. The food itself, once the star of the show, becomes a symbol of your internal struggle. You might feel obligated to partake, to perform enjoyment, to maintain appearances, all while experiencing a profound disconnect. The festive atmosphere, rather than lifting your spirits, might only amplify your sense of isolation, making you feel like an imposter at your own celebration. The once cherished traditions now feel like heavy chains, binding you to an experience you no longer truly desire. The crumbling of these rituals isn't just about the food. It's about the broader implications for your life. Food rituals often provide structure, routine, and a sense of normalcy. When they fall apart, other areas of your life can feel destabilized. The loss of consistent meal times can disrupt your energy levels, your sleep patterns, and your overall well-being. The absence of shared meals can lead to a diminishment of social connection and a feeling of estrangement from those around you. What began as a subtle shift in your feelings towards food gradually erodes the very fabric of your daily existence, leaving you feeling adrift and disconnected. The comforting rhythm of life, once punctuated by the steady beat of meals, now feels erratic and off-key, contributing to a pervasive sense of disquiet. This erosion of ritual is a powerful indicator that the disconnect from food is not merely a passing phase, but a deeply entrenched transformation of your relationship with a fundamental aspect of human life. As the joy fades and the rituals crumble, a new and deeply unsettling chapter begins: the body's betrayal. What was once a reliable, often delightful, vessel for processing nourishment now seems to turn against you, transforming the very act of eating into a source of discomfort, pain, or unpredictable reactions. This isn't just about disliking the taste of something. It's about a visceral, physiological response that moves beyond mere preference into the realm of genuine physical distress. Your body, which once embraced food, now seems to reject it, creating a profound sense of alienation from your own physical self. This betrayal marks a significant escalation, making the intellectual and emotional struggle with food undeniably physical and often acutely miserable. You might first notice this as an increased sensitivity to certain foods that you previously tolerated without issue. A dish that was once a staple in your diet might now trigger unexpected digestive upset, bloating, gas, cramps, or an unpleasant sense of fullness that lingers for hours. It's not just indigestion. It feels more targeted, more personal, as if your internal system has declared war on specific ingredients. The act of eating becomes a gamble, a constant guessing game of, will this make me feel bad? This uncertainty fosters a deep anxiety around mealtimes, turning what should be a straightforward act of self-care into a source of apprehension. You become hyper-aware of every gurgle, every pang, every subtle sensation within your abdomen, scrutinizing your body for signs of rebellion. Then there are the less obvious, but equally unsettling systemic reactions. Perhaps you experience sudden bouts of fatigue after eating, an energy crash that leaves you drained and sluggish, rather than energized as food should. Or you might notice skin breakouts, headaches, or a general feeling of malaise that seems directly linked to what you consume. It's a frustrating mystery, as these symptoms often defy easy explanation and don't always align with typical allergic reactions. This makes diagnosis difficult and leaves you feeling increasingly helpless. You might start meticulously tracking what you eat, searching for patterns, creating elaborate food diaries in a desperate attempt to pinpoint the culprits. Each failed experiment, each new discomfort, reinforces the narrative of your body betraying you, creating a growing sense of distrust in its signals. The feeling of physical discomfort can also manifest as an overwhelming sense of fullness or heaviness, even after eating very little. Your stomach might feel distended, uncomfortably tight, or like there's a lead weight pressing down on your diaphragm. This sensation is disproportionate to the amount of food consumed, leaving you confused and disheartened. It's as if your body has lost the ability to properly process and integrate nourishment, treating even small portions as an insurmountable challenge. This constant feeling of physical burden transforms the simple act of eating into a prolonged period of discomfort, further eroding any remaining pleasure or sense of peace around food. The lightness and ease that should follow a satisfying meal are replaced by a persistent, heavy unease. Another aspect of this bodily betrayal can be a change in appetite regulation. You might swing between periods of complete absence of hunger, where the thought of food is repulsive, and sudden, intense cravings for specific, often unhealthy, items. This erratic signaling from your body makes it difficult to maintain a consistent eating pattern or to make balanced choices. The intuitive dance between hunger and satiety is completely disrupted, replaced by a chaotic and unpredictable rhythm. You lose faith in your body's ability to tell you what it needs, further exacerbating the feeling of being at odds with your own physiology. This unpredictability adds another layer of stress, making meal planning and even spontaneous eating an exercise in frustration. The psychological impact of this physical betrayal is profound. When your own body, the most intimate and reliable aspect of your existence, begins to turn against you at mealtimes, it fosters a deep sense of vulnerability and helplessness. You start to question your fundamental connection to your physical self. This constant discomfort and unpredictable reactions can lead to a pervasive sense of anxiety that bleeds into all aspects of your life. The once unconscious, effortless act of eating transforms into a minefield, where every bite is a potential trigger for pain or distress. This relentless physical struggle reinforces the idea that food is no longer a friend, but an enemy lurking on your plate, actively working against your well-being. This physical unraveling pushes you further down the path of detaching from food, as the very act of consumption becomes a source of dread. As your body seemingly betrays you, the battle inevitably moves into the most intimate of spaces, your mind. The mental landscape surrounding food becomes increasingly intrusive and negative, transforming what was once an unthinking part of life into a constant, overwhelming preoccupation. Your thoughts about food are no longer about enjoyment or sustenance. They are consumed by worries, anxieties, guilt, and a relentless internal monologue that dissects every morsel, every calorie, every sensation. This mental entanglement traps you in a cycle of rumination, turning the simple act of eating into an exhausting psychological ordeal, fostering a profound sense of internal conflict and mental fatigue. You begin to experience a heightened sense of self-consciousness around eating. Every meal, whether alone or with others, becomes an audit. You scrutinize your plate, weighing choices, analyzing ingredients, and predicting potential physical repercussions. The spontaneity of eating vanishes, replaced by a meticulous, almost obsessive calculation. This mental overhead is draining, turning what should be a straightforward act into a complex problem-solving exercise. You might find yourself mentally rehearsing meals before they even happen, anticipating challenges and preemptively strategizing how to navigate them. This constant mental engagement means that even when you're not eating, food occupies a significant portion of your mental bandwidth, an unwelcome guest in your thoughts. The internal dialogue becomes a relentless critic. Thoughts like, is this healthy enough? Will this make me feel bad? Did I eat too much? Should I have chosen something else? Constantly cycle through your mind. This critical voice can be incredibly harsh, turning even a perfectly nutritious meal into a source of guilt or regret. You start to associate food not with pleasure, but with a complex web of rules, restrictions, and self-judgment. Every bite feels like a moral decision, every choice a potential failure. This mental burden is isolating, as these battles are fought entirely within your own head, unseen and unheard by others, but no less real or painful. Anxiety becomes a constant companion at mealtimes. The anticipation of eating can trigger a racing heart, shallow breath, or a knot in your stomach, even before the food is present. This isn't just about fearing physical discomfort. It's a broader anxiety about the act itself, the perceived loss of control, and the emotional toll it takes. You might find yourself avoiding social gatherings centered around food, not out of rudeness, but because the anxiety associated with navigating the meal, the choices, and the potential discomfort feels insurmountable. This avoidance, while offering temporary relief, only reinforces the negative associations and further entrenches the problem, leading to increased isolation. This negative mental landscape also breeds a sense of detachment from your hunger cues. You start to distrust your body's signals, interpreting hunger as a trick, a precursor to discomfort, rather than a natural need. You might try to suppress hunger or ignore it, leading to erratic eating patterns that further confuse your system. The intuitive connection between mind and body, once harmonious, is now fractured, making it incredibly difficult to know when, what, or how much to eat in a way that feels natural or nourishing. Your mind becomes the gatekeeper, often an unforgiving one, overriding the body's natural wisdom. Furthermore, food can become deeply intertwined with your sense of self-worth. If you perceive yourself as failing to eat correctly, or if you consistently experience discomfort, it can translate into feelings of inadequacy or shame. The inability to enjoy something so fundamental can feel like a personal failing, leading to a diminished sense of self-esteem. You might start to define yourself by your struggles with food, allowing it to overshadow other aspects of your identity. This mental entanglement turns food into a constant reminder of perceived shortcomings, making it an even more potent source of psychological distress. The culmination of these intrusive thoughts and negative associations is a profound sense of mental fatigue. The constant vigilance, the relentless self-criticism, the pervasive anxiety, it all takes a toll. You become mentally exhausted, feeling drained long before the day is over, simply from the sheer volume of mental energy dedicated to thinking about food. This mental exhaustion can spill over into other areas of your life, affecting your concentration, your mood, and your ability to engage with the world. The mind, once a source of creativity and joy, becomes a prison where thoughts of food are the bars, trapping you in a cycle of internal conflict and suffering, further cementing your estrangement from what was once a simple pleasure. With the joy of eating a distant memory and your mind a battleground, the social strain associated with food becomes an unavoidable, painful reality. Dining with others, once a cornerstone of human connection and a source of shared pleasure, transforms into an anxiety-ridden performance. The very act of sharing a meal, intended to foster intimacy and camaraderie, now brings an acute sense of isolation and a desperate desire to simply disappear. This social pressure adds another heavy layer to your struggle, amplifying your internal conflict and making you feel increasingly estranged from the world around you. Consider the simple invitation to dinner, where once you would have eagerly accepted, perhaps even suggested a place. Now it triggers a cascade of internal panic. Your mind immediately races through potential scenarios. What will be on the menu? Will there be options I can tolerate? How will I explain my limited appetite or specific aversions without sounding rude or demanding? Will people notice if I don't finish my plate? The anticipation of the meal becomes a source of dread, far outweighing any potential enjoyment of the company. You might find yourself concocting elaborate excuses to decline invitations, or if you do attend, spending the entire evening consumed by strategies to navigate the food situation rather than genuinely engaging with the conversation. Once at the table, the performance begins. You observe others eating with apparent ease and pleasure, their laughter and lively discussion around food feeling like a foreign language. You try to mimic their naturalness, taking small bites, pushing food around your plate, perhaps even praising a dish you secretly find unappetizing or fear will cause discomfort. Every comment about the food, every encouraging nudge to have a bit more, feels like a spotlight shining on your inadequacy. You become acutely aware of how much you're eating or not eating compared to others, fueling a deep sense of self-consciousness. This constant vigilance prevents you from truly relaxing and connecting, turning the social occasion into an exhausting charade. The questions from well-meaning friends or family can be particularly agonizing. Are you not hungry? Is everything okay? You're barely eating. Each inquiry, though often born of genuine concern, feels like an accusation. Explaining your complex relationship with food is often impossible in a casual setting, leading to vague answers, half-truths, or outright deflections. This creates a wall between you and those you care about, as you feel unable to share the depth of your struggle. The inability to be truly open and authentic in these moments fosters a painful sense of loneliness, even when surrounded by loved ones. You become adept at deflection, at changing the subject, at anything to avoid the uncomfortable scrutiny. Dining in restaurants presents its own unique set of challenges. The vastness of menus, once exciting, now feels overwhelming. The pressure to choose something appropriate or safe, while others are eagerly exploring diverse options, can be paralyzing. You might spend an inordinate amount of time studying the menu, not for pleasure, but for damage control. Asking for substitutions or making specific requests can feel like drawing unwanted attention, leading to an internal battle between your need for comfort and your desire to appear normal. The waitstaff's questions about your satisfaction with the meal become another hurdle, requiring carefully crafted, non-committal responses. This social strain doesn't just affect your direct interactions. It can also impact your sense of identity within social circles. Food is often a shared language, a way to bond, to celebrate, to comfort. When you're unable to participate in this language, you might feel like an outsider, disconnected from the very fabric of social life. Holiday gatherings, birthdays, even casual coffee breaks. All these events often revolve around food, making it difficult to fully engage without confronting your issues. You might start to proactively avoid certain social situations or gravitate towards those where food is less central, further isolating yourself from your community. The cumulative effect of this social strain is a profound sense of exhaustion and alienation. You long for the ease and spontaneity that others seem to possess around food, yet it feels utterly out of reach. The once simple act of sharing a meal becomes a complex performance, filled with anxiety and internal conflict. This constant battle to maintain appearances, to hide your struggle, takes a tremendous toll on your mental and emotional energy. The isolation fostered by this inability to genuinely connect over food further reinforces the idea that you are uniquely broken, deepening your despair and reinforcing the idea that your relationship with food is a burden not only to yourself, but also to those around you. The joy of connection, like the joy of eating, slowly withers under the relentless weight of social pressure. With the joy of eating gone, rituals shattered, your body in rebellion, your mind a war zone, and social interactions fraught with anxiety, you finally begin the desperate, often frustrating, search for answers. The question, why, echoes relentlessly in your mind, driving you to seek explanations, diagnoses, and solutions for a problem that feels increasingly profound and intractable. This phase is marked by a frantic energy, a desperate hope that somewhere, someone, or something holds the key to unlocking the mystery of why you stopped loving food. You become a detective of your own dis-ease, tirelessly sifting through information, theories, and potential remedies. Your initial search often begins with self-diagnosis, fueled by the vast ocean of information available online. You might spend hours poring over articles, forums, and symptom checkers, frantically typing in your experiences. Loss of appetite, food aversion, digestive issues after eating, anxiety around food. Each search term opens a new rabbit hole of possibilities. You encounter everything from simple dietary deficiencies to complex medical conditions, from psychological disorders to obscure environmental factors. This initial dive into information can be both empowering and terrifying. Empowering because it offers the hope of a name, a category for your suffering. Terrifying because the sheer volume of possibilities can be overwhelming, and many potential diagnoses paint a bleak picture. Armed with your nascent, often contradictory understanding, you might then turn to medical professionals. The journey through the healthcare system can be a long and winding one, filled with its own unique challenges. You visit your primary care physician, hoping for a quick answer, a simple pill, a straightforward solution. They might order a battery of tests, blood work, stool samples, imaging scans, searching for physiological abnormalities. You undergo these procedures with a mix of dread and anticipation, always hoping the next test will reveal a clear culprit, a definitive reason for your struggles. Each normal result, while reassuring in one sense, is also deeply frustrating, leaving you back at square one, feeling unheard and misunderstood. If no obvious physical cause is found, the journey often leads to specialists. Gastroenterologists might delve deeper into your digestive system, performing endoscopies or colonoscopies, looking for inflammation, ulcers, or other structural issues. Dietitians and nutritionists might analyze your eating habits, suggesting elimination diets or nutritional supplements, hoping to identify intolerances or deficiencies. You become a patient, a subject of various investigations, offering up your body and your history to a succession of experts, each with their own focus and approach. The hope dwindles with each inconclusive consultation, each expert who shrugs and says, "Everything looks normal." The emotional toll of this diagnostic odyssey is immense. You yearn for validation, for someone to say, "Yes, this is what's happening to you, and we can help." When answers are elusive, you begin to doubt yourself. Is it all in your head? Are you exaggerating? Are you simply difficult or overly sensitive? This self-doubt compounds the existing anxiety and isolation, making you feel increasingly alone in your struggle. The sense of being a medical mystery can be profoundly unsettling, leaving you feeling adrift without a compass in a sea of confusing symptoms. Beyond the purely medical, your search for answers might also lead you to explore psychological or spiritual avenues. You might consider therapy, believing the root of your aversion to be emotional or trauma-related. You might read self-help books, engage in mindfulness practices, or seek alternative healers, desperately trying to reconnect with your body and mind on a deeper level. The sheer desperation to find relief drives you to explore every conceivable option, no matter how unconventional. This search becomes an all-consuming quest, overshadowing other aspects of your life as finding a solution to your food problem becomes paramount. The weight of this ongoing search, combined with the lack of clear answers, can be exhausting. You invest enormous amounts of time, energy, and often financial resources into this quest, often with minimal tangible results. The initial hope begins to fray, replaced by a weary resignation. Yet, beneath the fatigue, a spark of determination often remains. The fundamental human need to understand and to heal propels you forward, even when the path ahead is obscured and the answers remain tantalizingly out of reach. This phase of intense inquiry, while draining, is a testament to the profound impact that a disrupted relationship with food can have on every aspect of a person's life, forcing them to confront the profound question about their own well-being. As you desperately search for answers, a new challenge emerges, perhaps even more insidious than the last: the advice overload. Suddenly, everyone, from well-meaning friends and family to internet gurus and health bloggers, seems to have an opinion, a suggestion, or a guaranteed cure for your food-related woes. This deluge of conflicting information, while initially appearing helpful, often serves only to deepen your confusion, amplify your anxiety, and leave you feeling even more lost in the labyrinth of your struggle. What starts as a lifeline quickly becomes a tangled web, pulling you further into the emotional and mental quagmire. Your friends, observing your struggles, might offer anecdotes from their own lives. "My cousin tried a gluten-free diet and felt amazing. Have you tried intermittent fasting? It worked wonders for me." While these suggestions come from a place of care, they often fail to acknowledge the complexity and deeply personal nature of your situation. You might feel pressured to try every recommendation, not wanting to seem dismissive or ungrateful. Each new diet, supplement, or lifestyle change becomes another experiment, another potential path to disappointment. The constant influx of these well-meaning but often ill-fitting solutions adds another layer of pressure, making you feel like you're constantly failing to find the right answer. Family members, with their deep-seated history and emotional connection, can offer advice that, while heartfelt, might also be deeply rooted in their own experiences and biases. "You just need to eat more home-cooked meals," your mother might suggest, oblivious to the fact that cooking itself has become a source of dread. Or, "You're just being too picky," a comment that invalidates your genuine physical discomfort and psychological distress. These comments, often delivered with love, can sting deeply, making you feel judged, misunderstood, and even guilty for not being able to conform to their expectations of normal eating. The emotional weight of family expectations surrounding food can be immense, transforming mealtimes into minefields of unspoken tension. The internet, that boundless source of information, becomes both a refuge and a tormentor. You dive into online communities, seeking solace and shared experience, only to be inundated with countless, often contradictory, pieces of advice. One forum advocates for a strict ketogenic diet, another for veganism, another for intuitive eating, and yet another for obscure detox protocols. Each community presents its approach as the definitive solution, often with passionate, almost evangelical fervor. You feel compelled to research each one, comparing, contrasting, and trying to discern which path, if any, holds true promise. This constant intellectual gymnastics is exhausting, leading to analysis paralysis and a pervasive sense of inadequacy. Beyond specific diets, there's the broader spectrum of health and wellness advice. You need to drink more water. It's all about gut health. Try these probiotics. Have you considered a cleanse? You just need to meditate more. It's stress-related. Each piece of advice, taken in isolation, might seem logical, but when presented in a chaotic, uncurated stream, it becomes overwhelming. You start to second-guess every habit, every choice, every aspect of your daily routine, wondering if you're missing some crucial piece of the puzzle. This constant questioning leads to a state of hypervigilance, where you're perpetually searching for external solutions to an internal problem that resists easy categorization. This advice overload often leads to a cycle of trial and error, each unsuccessful attempt further eroding your hope and trust in both external solutions and your own ability to heal. You might try an elimination diet for weeks, meticulously cutting out entire food groups, only to find no significant improvement or even new discomforts. The financial cost of buying specialized ingredients or supplements, coupled with the emotional investment in each new approach, makes these failures even more bitter. Each failed experiment reinforces the belief that your problem is unique, untreatable, or that you are simply not trying hard enough. The culmination of this advice overload is a profound sense of exhaustion and bewilderment. You feel bombarded by information, pressured by expectations, and increasingly isolated by your inability to conform to the myriad of suggested solutions. The initial hope that drove your search for answers slowly gives way to a weary cynicism. You become wary of new advice, skeptical of quick fixes, and deeply distrustful of anyone claiming to have a simple answer. This phase, while a natural part of seeking help, paradoxically makes the path to genuine understanding and healing even more convoluted, burying your true needs under an avalanche of well-intentioned but ultimately unhelpful noise. In your desperate attempt to regain control and alleviate the growing physical and mental discomfort, you often stumble into what can only be described as the dieting trap. What might begin as an innocent attempt to eat healthier or figure out what bothers you quickly escalates into a rigid, restrictive, and ultimately self-defeating cycle. This isn't about conscious weight loss for many. It's a desperate plea for predictability and a return to some semblance of normalcy. Yet it ironically pushes you further away from a healthy relationship with food, entangling you in a web of deprivation and eventual rebound. The first step into the trap often involves an elimination diet. You identify certain food groups or ingredients that you suspect are causing your discomfort: gluten, dairy, sugar, nightshades, anything that has been flagged in your frantic online research or by well-meaning friends. The initial phase might bring a temporary sense of relief, a brief reprieve from the constant discomfort. This fleeting improvement, however, acts as a powerful reinforcement, convincing you that you're on the right track, that restriction is the answer. You cling to this perceived control, cutting out more and more, until your diet becomes increasingly narrow and rigid. This growing restriction, however, comes at a significant cost. The mental energy required to adhere to such a strict regimen is immense. Every meal requires meticulous planning, label reading, and constant vigilance. Spontaneous eating becomes impossible, and dining out transforms into a logistical nightmare. You find yourself consumed by thoughts of food, what you can't eat, what you should eat, what you might eat if you let your guard down. This constant mental preoccupation with food, ironically, makes it an even larger presence in your life, despite your attempts to simplify and control it. The freedom and ease of eating are completely eradicated, replaced by a rigid set of self-imposed rules. The physical effects of this extreme restriction also begin to surface. While some initial discomfort might abate, the lack of variety can lead to nutritional deficiencies, impacting your energy levels, mood, and overall health. You might experience persistent fatigue, brain fog, or a general sense of malaise, which you mistakenly attribute to your underlying condition rather than the restrictive diet itself. Your body, deprived of diverse nutrients, might also begin to send stronger, more insistent signals of hunger, which you consciously try to suppress, viewing them as a weakness or a sign of failing your diet. This creates an internal battle where your conscious mind tries to override your body's fundamental biological needs. Then comes the inevitable rebound, a cruel twist in the dieting trap. The human body is remarkably resilient and will eventually fight back against prolonged deprivation. The intense mental and physical strain of restriction leads to overwhelming cravings, often for the very foods you have rigorously denied yourself. A moment of weakness, a stressful day, or a social occasion can trigger a slip, which quickly escalates into a full-blown binge. This isn't a lack of willpower. It's a biological and psychological response to extreme restriction. The body, starved of both calories and forbidden foods, seizes the opportunity to consume everything it has been denied. The aftermath of a rebound is often devastating. A tidal wave of guilt, shame, and self-recrimination washes over you. You feel like a complete failure, convinced that you lack discipline and that your struggles with food are entirely your own fault. This negative self-talk reinforces the cycle, leading to even stricter restrictions in an attempt to make up for the perceived transgression, which in turn sets the stage for the next rebound. You become trapped in a vicious circle of deprivation, craving, binging, and guilt, each iteration deepening your despair and reinforcing the idea that you are incapable of ever having a healthy relationship with food. The dieting trap also profoundly affects your perception of food itself. Foods are no longer neutral. They become good or bad, safe or dangerous, allowed or forbidden. This moralization of food creates an unhealthy relationship where enjoyment is replaced by judgment and fear. Every choice becomes a test, every meal a potential failure. The natural pleasure derived from eating is completely overshadowed by the anxiety of adherence and the dread of breaking rules. What began as a search for answers becomes a self-inflicted torment, further alienating you from your body, your instincts, and the very concept of nourishing yourself. This trap, while seemingly offering control, ultimately delivers only deeper entanglement and a profound sense of powerlessness. After cycling through medical investigations, an avalanche of conflicting advice, and the crushing disappointment of the dieting trap, a subtle but significant shift begins to occur. You start to look inward, realizing that the solution might not be found in external diagnoses or restrictive eating plans. This marks the slow, often painful, process of identifying the hidden triggers, the underlying emotional or psychological factors that have been quietly influencing and ultimately disrupting your relationship with food. It's a journey from seeking a physiological fault to uncovering the complex interplay between your mind, emotions, and eating habits. You might first notice this connection through patterns of emotional eating, albeit in reverse. Instead of finding comfort in food during times of stress, you might observe that stress completely obliterates your appetite or intensifies your existing aversions. A particularly demanding day at work, a conflict with a loved one, or even just a general sense of unease might leave you utterly incapable of contemplating a meal. Conversely, periods of calm or distraction might offer brief windows where food feels slightly more accessible, providing a fleeting glimpse into a different way of being. This observation begins to plant the seed that your internal emotional state is a powerful, perhaps even dominant, force in your relationship with food. Then comes the realization that past experiences, especially those involving trauma or significant life changes, might be casting a long shadow. Perhaps a period of acute stress or grief coincided with the initial decline in your appetite. Or you might recall instances where food was associated with negative emotions, pressure, punishment, or feelings of inadequacy. These connections aren't always immediately obvious. They require careful introspection and a willingness to explore uncomfortable memories. The mind, in its protective wisdom, can sometimes suppress or disassociate from painful experiences, but the body often remembers, manifesting that distress in unexpected ways, including a profound aversion to nourishment. Anxiety and control often emerge as major hidden triggers. The world can feel chaotic and unpredictable, and for many, controlling what they eat becomes a compensatory mechanism, a way to exert some semblance of order in an otherwise overwhelming environment. While your specific struggle might be a lack of love for food, the underlying drive for control can still be present. You might feel a perverse sense of safety in rejecting certain foods or adhering to strict regimens, even if those regimens bring physical discomfort. The act of saying no to food or feeling detached from its pleasure might offer a subconscious feeling of power, a way to reclaim agency in areas of your life where you feel powerless. The insidious nature of perfectionism can also play a role. If you have a tendency towards high standards and self-criticism, this can easily extend to your eating habits. The desire to eat perfectly healthy, clean, or the right way can become an unattainable goal, leading to constant feelings of failure. When you inevitably fall short of these impossibly high standards, the disappointment and self-judgment can further sour your relationship with food. The pressure to achieve an ideal, coupled with the frustration of your current struggles, creates a relentless internal critic that turns every meal into a test of your worthiness. Societal pressures and body image issues, though often discussed overtly, can also function as subtle, hidden triggers. Even if you don't consciously believe you're trying to lose weight, the constant bombardment of messages about ideal body types, clean eating, and the virtues of self-control can seep into your subconscious. You might internalize these messages, leading to an unconscious belief that less engagement with food or a more restrictive approach is somehow better or more virtuous. This can create a deep-seated conflict between your body's needs and societal ideals, further complicating your ability to simply enjoy food for what it is. Recognizing these hidden triggers is often a slow, arduous process, requiring courage and often the guidance of a therapist or counselor. It involves peeling back layers of defense mechanisms and confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself and your past. It's a shift from asking, "What's wrong with my stomach?" to "What's going on in my life, and how is it manifesting in my relationship with food?" This journey of self-discovery, while challenging, is also profoundly liberating. It marks the beginning of understanding that your struggle with food is not just a physiological anomaly, but a deeply interwoven expression of your emotional landscape, paving the way for a more holistic approach to healing and reconnection. As you peel back the layers and begin to uncover hidden triggers, one pervasive and often overlooked factor repeatedly emerges: the relentless role of stress. In our modern, fast-paced world, stress is an omnipresent force, subtly and overtly shaping every aspect of our lives, and your relationship with food is far from immune. What was once a subtle undercurrent now reveals itself as a powerful current, subtly altering your physiological responses and psychological perceptions, transforming food from a source of comfort into another conduit for daily pressures. This acknowledgement marks a crucial turning point, moving beyond individual triggers to recognize a systemic force at play. Think about the physiological impact of chronic stress. When you're constantly under pressure, your body is in a perpetual state of fight or flight. This primal response, designed for acute threats, floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. While useful for escaping a perceived danger, prolonged exposure to these hormones wreaks havoc on your digestive system. Digestion, a non-essential function in an emergency, slows down significantly. Blood flow is diverted away from your gut. Enzyme production decreases, and the delicate balance of your gut microbiome can be disrupted. This creates an internal environment where food is not optimally processed, leading to the very discomforts, bloating, indigestion, early satiety that you've been experiencing. Your body is quite literally too stressed to eat. Beyond the physical, stress profoundly affects your mental relationship with food. When your mind is racing with worries, headlines, and anxieties, there's little space left for the subtle pleasures of taste, texture, and aroma. Your attention is fragmented, making it impossible to be present during meals. You might eat quickly, distractedly, or even forget to eat altogether, simply because your mind is too preoccupied with other, more pressing concerns. The mindful act of nourishing yourself becomes an afterthought, a mechanical task squeezed between moments of intense mental strain. This mental preoccupation, driven by stress, actively prevents you from engaging with food in a way that allows for enjoyment. Stress also directly impacts your appetite regulation. For some, stress triggers an increase in cravings for high-sugar, high-fat comfort foods as a coping mechanism. But for many, especially when chronic and overwhelming, stress can completely suppress appetite. The constant release of cortisol can send signals to your brain that dampen hunger cues. You simply don't feel hungry, even when your body objectively needs fuel. Or, if hunger does present, it's often a vague, unpleasant sensation rather than a clear, driving desire. This blunting of appetite by stress can become a deeply ingrained pattern where your body learns to associate the presence of food with the unpleasant physical and mental sensations of being overwhelmed. The demands of a stressful lifestyle also directly erode the rituals around food. When you're constantly rushing, juggling multiple responsibilities, and battling a pervasive sense of urgency, there's no time or mental space for leisurely meals, thoughtful cooking, or social dining. Grabbing something quick, eating on the go, or skipping meals entirely becomes the norm, not out of choice, but out of necessity. The structure and comfort that these rituals once provided are casualties of a high-stress existence. Food becomes another thing to get through, rather than an opportunity for pause, connection, and rejuvenation. The very concept of a relaxed, enjoyable meal feels like an unattainable luxury. Furthermore, stress often leads to a diminished capacity for self-care in general. When you're stretched thin, prioritizing your well-being, including your nutritional needs, often falls by the wayside. You might resort to less nutritious options because they require less effort, or simply neglect to plan meals at all. This cycle of neglect, driven by stress, further exacerbates your physical discomforts and mental exhaustion, creating a feedback loop where stress makes eating difficult, and difficult eating makes you more stressed. The weight of all these pressures combines to create an environment where a loving relationship with food simply cannot thrive. Recognizing the pervasive influence of stress isn't just about identifying a trigger. It's about acknowledging a fundamental aspect of your contemporary existence that is actively working against your ability to enjoy and benefit from food. It demands a shift in perspective, moving beyond individual foods or symptoms to consider the broader context of your life. Understanding that your aversion to food is, in part, a manifestation of the stress you carry opens up new avenues for healing, not necessarily by changing your diet, but by fundamentally rethinking your approach to managing the pressures of modern life. This realization highlights the critical link between internal well-being and external circumstances, revealing stress as a silent saboteur of your relationship with nourishment. Beyond the internal battles of mind and body and the pervasive shadow of stress, there's another powerful, often insidious force shaping your relationship with food: the media's influence. From the glossy pages of magazines to the endless scroll of social media, from television advertisements to documentaries, the constant barrage of images, messages, and narratives about food, diet, and body image can profoundly impact your self-perception and further complicate your already strained connection to nourishment. This external pressure, often internalized, acts as a relentless, subtle shaper of your desires and fears, contributing to a sense of inadequacy and further distancing you from intuitive eating. Consider the pervasive ideal of the perfect body, endlessly showcased in advertisements and entertainment. You are bombarded with images of lean, toned physiques, often accompanied by suggestions of specific diets or food choices. While you might not be actively trying to lose weight, these ideals subtly insinuate themselves into your subconscious, creating an unspoken pressure to conform. If your body is already reacting negatively to food, or if you're struggling with discomfort, These images can make you feel even more alienated from your physical self, reinforcing the idea that your body is failing to meet an arbitrary standard. This constant visual comparison can lead to a deeper dissatisfaction with your own physical form, even if you never consciously articulate it. Then there's the relentless promotion of healthy eating that, while ostensibly positive, can become another source of anxiety. The media often presents food in black and white terms: superfoods versus toxic ingredients, clean eating versus dirty eating. This moralization of food creates a rigid framework where every choice is judged, every meal a potential success or failure. For someone already struggling with food aversion, this constant judgment can be crippling. You might feel immense pressure to adhere to these ever-shifting ideals, even when your body rebels against them. The fear of eating the wrong thing, or of not being healthy enough, can become an overwhelming burden, stripping away any remaining joy or spontaneity from your meals. Social media, in particular, acts as an echo chamber, amplifying these pressures. You scroll through perfectly curated feeds, showcasing aesthetically pleasing meals, elaborate healthy recipes, and aspirational lifestyles centered around specific dietary trends. Influencers promote their wellness journeys, often implying that certain eating habits are the key to happiness, success, and physical perfection. This constant exposure to seemingly flawless food lives can create a profound sense of inadequacy. Your own messy, challenging relationship with food feels incredibly isolated and abnormal in comparison, leading to increased self-criticism and a deeper sense of shame. The media also sensationalizes health scares and dietary fads, creating an atmosphere of fear and confusion. One week, gluten is the enemy; the next, dairy. One expert champions a high-fat diet, while another warns against it. This conflicting information, presented with urgency and authority, can be incredibly disorienting when you're already searching for answers. It feeds into the existing anxiety, making it almost impossible to trust any single piece of advice, or more importantly, to trust your own body's signals. You become wary of everything, viewing food through a lens of suspicion and potential harm, rather than nourishment and pleasure. Even entertainment media plays a role. Think of shows where characters meticulously track their food, or where entire plot lines revolve around dietary restrictions. These portrayals, while fictional, normalize an obsessive relationship with food, making it seem like a common or even desirable way to live. For someone already struggling, these narratives can reinforce the idea that their constant preoccupation with food is simply a normal part of being health conscious, rather than a symptom of a deeper problem. This normalization can make it harder to recognize the severity of your own struggles and seek appropriate help. The cumulative effect of this media influence is a constant, subtle erosion of your self-trust and intuitive connection to food. You become external-facing, constantly looking to outside sources for guidance on what, when, and how to eat, rather than listening to your own body's wisdom. This constant external validation seeking, combined with the often unattainable ideals presented, further deepens your sense of inadequacy and fuels your internal conflict. The media, designed to inform and entertain, inadvertently becomes another powerful force, pushing you away from a peaceful and loving relationship with the very thing that sustains life, leaving you feeling perpetually judged and constantly falling short of an imagined ideal. After enduring the frustrating search for answers, navigating the overwhelming advice overload, falling into the deceptive dieting trap, and understanding the pervasive influences of stress and media, a vital shift begins to take hold. You move beyond merely identifying symptoms and start on the arduous, yet ultimately liberating, path to understanding. This is the slow process of unraveling the complex web of reasons behind your changing feelings towards food, connecting the dots between your internal world and the external pressures, allowing for a more holistic and compassionate perspective to emerge. This phase is characterized by introspection, patience, and a growing sense of self-awareness. The first step in this unraveling is often a recognition of the interconnectedness of your experiences. You begin to see that your physical discomforts are not isolated incidents, but are often exacerbated by stress and anxiety. The mental preoccupation with food isn't just a quirk. It's a coping mechanism, however unhelpful, for underlying emotional turmoil. The social strain isn't just about rudeness. It's a manifestation of a deeper fear of judgment and misunderstanding. This realization that everything is intertwined, body, mind, emotions, and environment, is profoundly empowering. It shifts you away from the narrow search for a single cause and towards a broader understanding of a complex system. You might begin to differentiate between genuine physical hunger and emotional cues. Through careful observation, perhaps with the help of a therapist or a trusted friend, you learn to identify the subtle sensations that indicate true physiological need, distinct from the feelings of anxiety, boredom, or sadness that might have previously manifested as an aversion to food. This discernment is crucial, as it allows you to respond more appropriately to your body's actual needs, rather than reacting to a distorted signal. It's about relearning your body's language, a language that has been obscured by years of struggle and confusion. Part of this unraveling involves confronting the fear of food itself. Over time, due to discomfort, restrictive diets, and negative associations, food can become an object of fear. You might subconsciously believe certain foods will cause pain, lead to weight gain, or trigger unwanted emotions. Understanding this fear, acknowledging its validity given your past experiences, is the first step to dismantling it. It's about recognizing that the fear, while real, is often disproportionate to the actual threat. This process requires a gentle, gradual re-exposure to foods, focusing on building trust and positive associations, rather than clinging to rigid rules. You also begin to understand the role of self-compassion. The constant self-criticism and guilt you've experienced around food have only deepened your struggle. Realizing that your aversion isn't a moral failing, but a complex response to a multitude of factors, allows for a softer, more forgiving approach. Instead of blaming yourself for not being able to just eat, you start to acknowledge the genuine difficulty of your situation. This self-compassion is vital for breaking the cycle of shame and self-recrimination, creating a space for healing and acceptance. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer to a struggling friend. The unraveling also entails recognizing that healing is not a linear process. There will be good days and bad days, breakthroughs and setbacks. Accepting this ebb and flow, rather than viewing every step back as a failure, is crucial for sustained progress. You learn to ride the waves of your experience, understanding that a bad meal or a moment of aversion doesn't erase the progress you've made. This resilience, born from understanding, allows you to persist even when the path ahead seems daunting, recognizing that each experience, positive or negative, provides valuable information for your journey. Ultimately, the path to understanding is about reclaiming agency. It's about moving from a state of being a victim of your symptoms to becoming an active participant in your own healing. This involves listening intently to your body, challenging ingrained negative thought patterns, and gently re-evaluating your relationship with food on your own terms, rather than through the lens of external pressures. This deep introspection, though challenging, offers the profound reward of clarity, allowing you to gradually reconstruct a more authentic and peaceful connection with nourishment, built on awareness rather than fear or obligation. The light of understanding, however faint, begins to illuminate the long road back to a healthier relationship with food. Emerging from the depths of understanding, a fragile yet potent force begins to stir within you, a glimmer of hope. It's not a sudden, blinding light, but rather a quiet, persistent spark, indicating that the possibility of a different relationship with food, one built on acceptance and balance, might not be an impossible dream. This is the moment when the exhaustion of the past begins to give way to a renewed sense of purpose. A small but significant shift towards believing in the potential for healing and a gentle reconnection with nourishment. This glimmer of hope is the tender shoots of a new beginning, pushing through the cracked earth of past struggles. This hope often first appears as a moment of clarity, a brief instance where the intense mental noise around food quiets. Perhaps you have a meal where, for a few bites, the anxiety lessens, the discomfort is manageable, and you experience a faint echo of pleasure. This momentary reprieve, however fleeting, serves as powerful proof that a different reality is possible. It's a taste of what could be, a reminder of the peace that once existed and could, with effort and patience, be rediscovered. This experience, however small, becomes a vital touchstone, a beacon to guide you through future challenges. The glimmer of hope is also fueled by a newfound self-compassion. As you unravel the complex reasons for your aversion, you realize that your struggle is not a sign of weakness, but a profound response to a multitude of internal and external pressures. This understanding fosters a deep sense of empathy for yourself, allowing you to approach your challenges with kindness rather than harsh judgment. Instead of chastising yourself for a bad meal, you offer yourself understanding. This compassionate self-talk begins to disarm the internal critic, creating a more supportive inner environment for healing to take root. You realize that true strength lies not in forcing yourself to eat, but in gently listening to your body and mind. Another source of hope comes from the gradual rebuilding of trust in your own body. Through small, consistent acts of mindful eating and gentle experimentation, you start to observe that certain foods are, in fact, tolerable, and that some discomforts are temporary or manageable. This process of relearning your body's signals, validating its responses, and cautiously expanding your palate slowly erodes the fear and distrust that had become so ingrained. Each positive experience, no matter how minor, adds another brick to the foundation of trust, reinforcing the belief that your body is not inherently against you, but a complex system trying to communicate its needs. The decision to seek professional support or to engage more deeply with existing support can also ignite this glimmer of hope. When you find a therapist, a dietitian, or a support group that truly understands your struggles and offers practical, compassionate guidance, it can feel like finding an oasis in a desert. Knowing you are not alone and that there are experts who can help you navigate this intricate path instills a profound sense of relief and optimism. This external validation and expert guidance provide a scaffolding upon which you can begin to reconstruct a healthier relationship with food. This nascent hope often manifests as a renewed desire for balance, not just with food, but in your life overall. You begin to understand that your relationship with nourishment is intricately linked to your overall well-being. This prompts you to explore broader strategies for stress management, self-care, and emotional regulation. It's a realization that healing your relationship with food is part of a larger journey of holistic self-improvement, fostering a sense of agency and empowerment. This desire for balance transforms the struggle from a punitive chore into an opportunity for growth and personal transformation. The glimmer of hope is a powerful motivator because it offers a vision of a future where food is no longer an enemy, a source of anxiety, or a daily battle. It's a future where you can once again experience the simple pleasure of a meal, participate joyfully in social gatherings, and trust your body to guide you. This vision, however distant it may sometimes feel, serves as a constant reminder of why you are undertaking this challenging journey. It's the belief that peace is possible, that reconnection is within reach, and that the long, arduous path is leading you towards a more harmonious and integrated existence. This fragile hope is the essential fuel for the journey ahead, promising that the darkness of aversion will not last forever. Fueled by the glimmer of hope and armed with a deeper understanding of your own complex journey, you begin to imagine a new reality, the future feast. This isn't just about food on a plate. It's a symbolic vision of a healed relationship with nourishment, rebuilt on self-awareness, acceptance, and a renewed capacity for joy. It's a forward-looking perspective, where the lessons learned from past struggles pave the way for a more peaceful, intuitive, and ultimately loving connection with food. This final stage is about envisioning and actively working towards a future where food is no longer a source of dread, but a consistent, gentle companion in your life. The future feast begins with the quiet joy of rediscovering intuitive eating. This means learning to listen, once again, to your body's true hunger and fullness cues, free from the judgment and anxiety that once clouded them. It's about eating when you're genuinely hungry, stopping when you're comfortably satisfied, and choosing foods that genuinely make your body feel good, without strict rules or external pressures. This is a gentle dance, a process of trust building between your mind and body, where the wisdom of your internal signals guides your choices, rather than rigid diets or emotional whims. The act of eating transforms from a battle to a conversation, a respectful dialogue with your own physiology. This future feast also includes a renewed appreciation for the sensory experience of food. Having spent so long detached from taste, texture, and aroma, you now approach meals with a fresh, almost childlike curiosity. You might find yourself savoring each bite, noticing the nuances of flavor, the satisfying crunch of a vegetable, or the comforting warmth of a soup. The act of mindful eating becomes a practice, a way to fully engage with the present moment and reclaim the simple pleasures that were once lost. This re-engagement with your senses is a powerful act of healing, transforming meals from a chore into an opportunity for sensory exploration and delight. The social aspect of food is also reimagined in this future. Instead of dreading shared meals, you look forward to them as genuine opportunities for connection and celebration. The anxiety around choices, portions, and judgment gradually dissipates, replaced by a confident acceptance of your own needs. You learn to advocate for yourself gently, to choose what feels right without guilt, and to enjoy the company of others regardless of what's on your plate. Social dining becomes a source of genuine joy, a chance to bond and create memories, rather than a performance to endure. The table, once a place of tension, becomes a symbol of connection and shared experience. The future feast also embodies a profound sense of freedom. Freedom from the constant mental chatter about food, freedom from the tyranny of diets, and freedom from the fear of physical discomfort. This liberation allows for mental space to pursue other passions, to engage more fully with life, and to simply exist without the overwhelming preoccupation with eating. This newfound mental spaciousness is incredibly restorative, allowing you to reclaim energy and focus for the things that truly matter to you, beyond the confines of your plate. Crucially, this vision embraces self-acceptance. You understand that your journey is unique, and that perfect eating doesn't exist. There will still be challenging days, moments of doubt, or occasional discomfort. But now, you approach these moments with resilience and compassion, viewing them as temporary blips on a longer, more forgiving path. You learn to ride the waves of your experience, trusting in your ability to navigate challenges and return to a place of balance. This acceptance of imperfection is perhaps the most profound aspect of the future feast, allowing you to live authentically and gently with yourself. Finally, the future feast represents a reintegration of food into the rich tapestry of your life, not as a source of struggle, but as a source of nourishment, pleasure, and connection. It's about building a relationship with food that is sustainable, respectful, and joyful, one that honors your body's needs and your emotional well-being. It's a continuous journey, a gentle unfolding, but one that is now guided by self-awareness and a profound commitment to your own healing. The love for food, once extinguished, begins to rekindle, not as an obsessive flame, but as a warm, steady glow, illuminating a path towards holistic well-being and a life lived with greater ease and genuine delight. And so, As the final chapter of this personal odyssey draws to a close, remember that journeys of healing are rarely linear. They are a mosaic of small steps, quiet reflections, and profound discoveries. What began as a subtle unease, a whisper of discontent, has transformed into a narrative of resilience, a testament to the human spirit's capacity for introspection and growth. You've navigated the choppy waters of discomfort, the dense fog of confusion, and the harsh winds of societal pressure. But through it all, you've held on to that glimmer of hope, that unwavering belief in the possibility of a better way. The future feast isn't a destination. It's a continuous invitation to engage with life and with yourself with more kindness and understanding. It's about recognizing that your relationship with food is a mirror reflecting your overall well-being, intimately connected to your stress, your emotions, and your self-perception. The lessons learned on this path extend far beyond the plate, teaching you about patience, self-compassion, and the profound power of listening to your own inner wisdom. May your days be filled with moments of quiet joy, gentle nourishment, and a deep appreciation for the intricate dance between your body, mind, and spirit. May you find peace at every table, and may every meal be a testament to your journey of self-discovery and enduring strength. The end, sweet dreams.